Hey everybody, it's Rob. Our last meeting for KCFC and the end of session is coming up. Our last meeting will be Monday night, which is tomorrow, or today, depending on when you're watching this. But wanted to kind of do a little show for you, quick presentation to let you see just a glimpse of what's actually been going on and what's happening. And even I'm not fully up to date on the most recent Kentucky legislations that may happen. So, 2018. The very beginning of cannabis in Kentucky. With the signing of the Farm Bill, our federal and state representatives accidentally and inadvertently re-legalized the same cannabis that was banned in 1937. They've created definitions, they've created laws around percentages, and they've created a lot of stuff that they didn't understand, which allowed the cannabis community to have full cannabis decriminalization nationally. Now, that's a big statement. That means you've got full flower rights, you've got full edible rights, you've got extracts. But the hemp industry had to use the definitions and the laws that were created to keep themselves out of jail. Now, if you've ever been into a cannabis dispensary for flower, and you've looked at that certificate of analysis, not the percentage of THC, the certificate of analysis. All that flower is THCA flower. So the hemp industry knew this and had to make sure that we understood not to convert the Delta 9 THC into the flower when it's testing, which makes THCA flower actually hemp. That is the same thing that's in dispensaries right now. You can Google any one of their certificate of analysis and see a high THCA strain as their flower. Now keep in mind, the edibles, that's all buy dry weight just like the flowers, except for the fact you can't buy THCA edibles because, well, they're non-activated and they're not euphoric. And everybody seems to want the euphoria of Delta 9 THC, which is what THCA naturally converts to via the sun or by a Bic lighter. That's just how it works. So, keep in mind, we've got full access to flower, edibles, and even extracts, because the extracts, when extracted in a cold environment, such as CO2 or alcohol, those Delta 9 cannabinoids do not activate. So, those concentrates are very, very clean and legal. And it's the exact same concentrates you get in carts or in dabs from a dispensary. It's all this similar. Now, I have people that always say, well, I want the real stuff. You're doing a disservice to the entire industry by saying that, because this is the real stuff. Your media, your federal, state, Republican, and Democrat representatives have worked diligently to make sure you not only do not understand what you have, that you don't have any clue about it because it's not on the news. And keep in mind, they've also done their own bit of propaganda here by putting out the thought that all you need is THC, and that's the medicinal part, when that's just a teeny tiny part of that plant. And you've always heard cannabis activists talking about whole plant medicine. That's because you require the CBD to keep the THC from going too far. Everybody has a limit. Even severe, chronically ill patients have a THC limit. And if you only consume THC, there's nothing there to keep it at bay. Nothing to keep the anxiety down. Nothing to keep the paranoia away. It can even lead to psychosis or hypermesis, or that new word they created to scare you by combining scream and vomit, scromiting. That's what CBD prevents. Now, if they're only promoting high THC stuff, there's a reason. They need to be able to regulate and then medicate a problem that they've created. Now, they're passing laws. These laws have now re-restricted these flower in Kentucky. That actually happened in 2019. So where Tennessee had a flourishing THC market for several years longer, Kentucky kneecapped the entire industry immediately and said no flower sales. We think it's marijuana and we'll charge you just exactly the same, because they knew right then what we had done and what we have legally. So Kentucky passed a law to restrict it. Then Kentucky tried to outlaw Delta 8 THC, saying it was synthetic and blah, blah, blah. It's not synthetic. It's a converted cannabinoid, very similar to how THCA converts to Delta 9 THC with heat. Delta 8 THC converts to Delta 8 THC from CBD isolate by adding an organic acid, heat, and time. They've made it sound much worse because they need a way to regulate and then tax it, which they're doing. They've passed several laws to further tax stuff, so like, we ain't even going to get into that. There's a lot of tax laws that have went through, but currently they're still working to keep you in the dark and re-prohibit this. That way they can then sell it back to you as medical cannabis or recreational cannabis. And don't expect recreational to come to Kentucky anytime soon. They're still expanding the medical market to make sure that more people are willing to go to a dispensary and pay those exorbitant prices for those products that are the exact same thing you can get through the hemp industry legally currently. Now, as far as laws that have passed that you may not understand or know, federally, there was a bill that was keeping the government from reopening, and they went ahead and passed that bill to reopen the government. Well, Mitch McConnell slipped in language that will destroy the hemp industry and prevent THCA and Delta 9 and Delta 8 THC from being legal unless you're in a cannabis dispensary. That's right, they've actually already passed a law to re-prohibit everything I just said you have legally on Veterans Day. They took this from your veterans on Veterans Day with a 1-year countdown to destruction of Veterans Day. The most beneficial part, they have re-banned by banning hemp. Now keep in mind, we're not just talking only THC now. We're talking whole plant medicine, because they're using THC to absolutely cause a problem with consumers with all the high THC stuff and no talk of CBD. The CBD, think about this, if CBD does basically the exact same thing as THC, with the exception it does not get you high, it means you can stack those milligrams high enough for a medicinal effect without getting obliterated high. And you can also take your THC with a ratio of CBD. That way you stay functional. You don't have to always eat 30 to 50 milligrams of THC to get relief. If you want to do it for a buzz, go for it. That's your right. It's legal so far until they take it away. But for medicine or for helping yourself with anxiety or especially inflammation, that's when the CBD is crucial. And they're not mentioning that because they don't want you to know that. So there is a problem. And when THC stops working, you can either go back to the pharmacy to help with the psychosis or the hypermesis, or you just go back to pharmaceuticals to help your ailments, when this plant should be able to help almost all of them. It's got known effects already. There's scientific studies that back it and show it and prove it, right down to being an antiviral against COVID and all emerging variants. They're hiding this information from you to re-prohibit it. They're trying to keep the cannabis drinks that are limited in Kentucky to 5 milligrams. They're trying to keep them legal since they've already padded the alcohol industry with them and gave them full rights and the only right to sell cannabis drinks. That's all in legislation that is happening now. And just so you know, Kentuckians, Kentucky representatives, again, both blue and red, are working very diligently so you don't know these things, and to pass more laws that tax what you have already. Imagine a 16% tax per milligram on your adult use cannabinoids, if we can save them. If we can save them in the state of Kentucky, that's what they're wanting to do, is to tax them insanely high, again, so it brings money to state taxes, but it also takes away the competition for medical marijuana, which is a considerably higher price. Guys and gals, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. So I don't care if you trust your state government, if you trust your federal government, who you voted for, I don't care. Reach out to them and ask them that they do what you ask as their representative, and support House Bill 199 or our constitutional amendment that allows you simply to vote on cannabis decriminalization for yourself, because that too has been kept from the news. Alright, so if any of this made sense to you, which most likely it didn't, and most people only got through 20 seconds of it, if it made sense, share it. And tune into our last meeting tomorrow, Monday night, 8 p.m. on Kentucky Cannabis Freedom Coalition's Facebook page. We will be live. I will be there with Patrick, and we'll be doing our best to help people stay informed, let them know what's going on, and do our best to bring unity in this state from both Republicans and Democrats, from black, from white, from red, from any orientation there is. We are cannabis consumers and we are cannabis activists. We're here for you, and we're trying to make sure you've got the best and most recent information. That's all we can do. I also own Kentucky CBD Pharmacy in Danville and online. So if you want to try any of these products before they're gone, now would be the time. At least know what's getting taken from you before it's taken. And don't come at me with that, I want the real stuff, because that just makes you ignorant after I've explained it every word.